Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Hut, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the People's Champion, your host, and welcome back to the Baseball Hut. I hope you like this video and subscribe. If you want to know what happened this season, hit the subscribe button. You'll get all the explanations you want or don't want in this video. But before we get into that, let's talk about the Mets, shall we? This is what we're going to do. The Mets have now at a point now we got 1 week left in this season, 6 games left. Thank God, this season is over. They played in Philadelphia. They got swept. I didn't mind them getting swept in Philadelphia. Get some one step closer to getting a really good draft pick. They are 3 games back in the loss column for the 6th worst record in baseball. Right now, the Mets have the 8th worst record in baseball. Now, that's a problem. That wouldn't be a problem for a lot of teams, but that's a problem for the Mets because that means that because they spent so much money this offseason, they get penalized in the draft. So, when things get settled, if they have like the 7th worst record or the 8th worst record, that means they get bumped down 10 slots to where it's the 17th best pick or the 18th best pick. Now, as you know, the Mets have done a wonderful job with the farm system. The Met players that they've brought in have been universally praised. They've performed admirably since they've been here. And the Met farm system has taken a big leap. But they really could use another big player, another elite player. We'll get into that more next week here at the Baseball Hut. But let's talk about the Mets now. They lost 4 games in Philadelphia. They lost a lot of one-run games. According to Gary Cohen, he'd said that the Mets, in half of their losses this year, which yesterday was 84, he said in about 41, 42 games, it was decided by 2 runs or less, or 1 run or less. I mean, really, that sums it up. That's the difference between winning and losing. And they mentioned also that the pitching was so poor when Scherzer was there, when Verlander was there, when they were pitching in April, May, and June. Peterson, McGill, Carrasco, when all these guys were pitching, the Mets automatically were behind in the game. How many runs did this group give up in the first inning? And the Mets, a lot of times, especially home, a lot of times they weren't even up at the plate a lot of times. And they weren't scoring runs in the first inning, obviously. So we know that when you give up runs first, any team that is behind the game from the beginning, the chances of that team losing goes dramatically up. Coming back in a baseball game is very difficult. So when you score runs in the first inning, you have a good chance of winning. We saw this last year. The Mets were great in the first inning. They scored runs in the first inning quite frequently. So we've seen this sort of reversal. Now, this idea that they've lost a lot of close games tells you they're not doing the little things that they were doing last year. They also said that on the broadcast too. And obviously, giving up runs early is a big part of that. Now, we know that this team needs to improve the pitching immeasurably. Okay? Starting pitching was terrible. Max Scherzer was a disappointment. Justin Verlander has been a disappointment. And even when they went over to their new teams or new old teams, they pitched similarly. And now, obviously, we know Scherzer is hurt. Verlander's still pitching, but he's not pitched really to any kind of level that he's used to. So we have a situation where when they were here, they weren't providing ace type work. They weren't providing Hall of Fame type performances. Last year they got it from Scherzer, but in September, obviously, and clearly against the Braves and against the Padres, they didn't get it. The one thing I was very concerned about in April, if you'd followed this channel, the other subscribers, I talked about how they were playing similarly to how they played in September. Very much the energy wasn't there. Uh, Obviously, falling behind in the game doesn't help. Obviously, not getting the kind of start pitching doesn't help. And I said at the time, especially this April and May, that this team was going to take a hit with the bullpen. And if you've noticed, this bullpen has been terrible since August, because all that kind of workload has caught up with them, and they're bringing in guys that are just not very good. Have you all gotten tired of Trevor Gott? I know I have. That was a bad trade at the time, and it's still a bad trade. I know they're trying to put lipstick on a pig, but sometimes a pig is just a pig. If Trevor Gott is watching this, I'm sorry. But sometimes a pig is just a pig, no matter how much lipstick they put on this particular player. He still stinks. He's still terrible. But like I said, that's the sort of the little things of the reason why this team has been so bad. I was reading earlier. I was blown away by this. The Mets are done with their road record. They're done with the road games. They have 6 games left at home. On the road this year, the Mets were, get this, 32-59. Out of 81 games, they won 32 games. That is a .395 winning percentage. You can't win that way. You can't win anything that way. Last year, they won. How many games they won? They must have won like close to 50 games last year on the road. They were great on the road. And to go 32-59, 27 games under 500, how the hell you do that? And meanwhile, they had 3 games over 500 at home. That's not good either. You want to be at least 10 games over 500 on home and be, at 500 on the road. But 27 games under 500, that's terrible. That is, again, why you don't, especially on the road, never want to get behind early in the game on the road, because what that does is not only does it put you behind the 8 ball, quote unquote, but it also puts you at a disadvantage because you're not at home. You don't have the last at bat. And of course, you don't have the crowd behind you. You have the crowd against you. It's not like, obviously not like the other sports, but you don't want the crowd against you. So at least if you're scoring first, it kind of puts the crowd down. Shuts them up early. So why do you want to deal with that? So obviously, these little things really added up to a very bad season. I'm surprised that this is not a 95 loss team, but obviously since the trade deadline, they played 500. They've been kind of hanging and skulking around the 500 mark a little bit. I guess that kind of tells you that Buck has been able to get them to play hard a little bit in the second half. But those little things, those little bits of detail in terms of scoring runs early, moving the runner over, bunting the runner over, all these little things, that's what perpetuated a bad season. It's not doing those little things. Also, aside from Kodai Senga on this team, did anybody on this team have a career year? Because a lot of times when teams win 100 games, they'll have guys that have career years. They didn't have that this year. Last year, they had some guys that had really good years. Chris Bass had a good year. Brandon Nimmo had a good year. Brandon Nimmo's having a good year. He's having a good year, but he's having a great finish this year. But Pete took a bit of a step back in terms of his batting average. He had that sort of, he got hit in Atlanta, and the batting average took a major hit. And by that point, I guess, with 300 plate appearances, it's very difficult to dig yourself out of a hole. Francisco Lindor, he's been very good in the second half. He's been an elite player in the second half, but his numbers aren't any higher than they've been. He's not having a career year. I mean, last year he had a lot of RBIs. That made a big difference. Jeff McNeil did not have a career year like he did last year. So, it's only Senga's having that big year here for this team. So you have these sort of little things. They add up after a while. And that explains why this team has been so lousy. And their energy, for the most part, has been lousy. The young guys, I will say they've been a bit of a mixed bag here. Alvarez was good, but I think because of the wear and tear of the season, I think that sort of has caught up with him. I think he might be the one guy that'll probably be an everyday player coming into spring training and going, coming here up north when spring training is over. Beatty is a mess, quite frankly. I'm not impressed with him at all, even though he's picked it up a little bit over the last week or two. A lot of it's because of Mauricio being here. I really like Mauricio's energy. His energy is terrific. He's much more athletic than I thought he would be. Where is his future here? Is he going to be a second baseman? He's kind of too big for second. Can he play third long term? I don't know. He's got a great arm. He's got very good speed. I like what I see with his bat. I don't know if he's an impact player. I think he'll be an everyday player, but I don't know if he's going to be an impact player. Mark Vientos. How do I look at him? He's a streaky hitter like all power hitters. I would go into spring training hoping that he could be a DH. I don't think he doesn't look like he can play first. I don't think he can play third. That's my opinion. We can all have difference of opinion. But I think he can. I like his swing. He is very streaky. But that's most power hitters. So to me, going into the off season, it's a mixed bag here. And I think these newer prospects will push them, especially going into spring training next year. Jet Williams is going to push them. Luis Angel Acuna is going to push them to perform better in spring training. And I think that will be a very big motivational thing for these guys in the offseason. Knowing that the Mets have a big farm system of everyday players that could basically replace them in the lineup if they have to. Also, one other thing. Obviously, they need to improve the pitching. We'll do other videos on the pitching. I'll do other videos on the pitching. This team desperately needs another big hitter in this lineup. I've been screaming about this for 2 years. Can they get a number 5 hitter on this team? Somebody that is as good as these other guys, as good as Lindor and as good as Alonso, and give these guys protection. I'm sick of watching Daniel Vogelbach and this sort of black hole in the 5 spot. And I don't believe in DJ Stewart. He has to come into spring training and make the team and see if he can be a 4th outfielder. If he's an everyday player, great. But I'm not giving him right field. I'm not giving him any outfield spot. He's got to prove to me and prove to everybody else that he can do it again. I don't care what he's done for the last 2 months. This team's been out of it. He's got an opportunity to play well, great for him. But I want to see him do it again in spring training. So that's I know people have written to me about him a little bit. I love what I see, but he's not a very good outfielder. I know his record as a hitter. He's a 220 hitter in the majors. So he's got to come back into spring training and prove that he can be a productive player on this team and be on this team. He will get a shot. The Mets will give him a shot, but is he an everyday player? I wouldn't put him in right field. He's not one of my outfielders. There are other guys that are better than him, a hell of a lot better. So let me know what you think about this video. And if you like this video and you watched the entirety of it, hit the subscribe button so you can be part of this great channel and this great community here that we have here. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.